Ben. Dead. Love, Lee. Pod. Cast.
I'm scared.
It's pretty spooky.
Oh.
You know, I think that we're doing this in response to the fact that somebody recently rated and reviewed our podcast on iTunes, which I hugely appreciate, but commented that this wasn't exactly a horror podcast because we didn't sound scared. Which I thought was pretty funny.
You know, the thing is that he doesn't know our regular voices. Normally, we sound much manlier and less afraid.
Absolutely so. Welcome to a brand new installment of Dead and Lovely, your absolute favorite horror movie review podcast. Not just straight horror podcast, but horror movie review podcast in all the known galaxy. Here with your host with the most, me, Uncle Ben, and who's that handsome, not even sort of scared voice I got on the other end of this phone call here?
Stevel Juice. It's me, Steven Spratling.
Well, welcome to the sickest podcast you'll listen to this week. I am currently suffering a severe Tennessee fall allergy beatdown where I haven't really been able to breathe very well for the past several days. Meanwhile, Steve, what are you afflicted with out there?
I am currently recovering from a no-good, very bad flu, so...
oh, mercy.
We are old men. I think this is 3 weeks in a row we've talked about our ailments.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think this has just been like the weekly check-in on like what we've been watching and what our ailments are.
Yeah.
What's your Metamucil intake like these days, Steve?
Oh man, not as much as my Werther's, but definitely a lot.
The Werther's intake is at an all-time peak.
Well, you gotta be eating Werther's. Nobody's gonna believe you're old.
I've been really noticing a very largely increased consumption of my ribbon candy quantity lately.
Oh yeah, some ribbon candy that you've had sitting on your table just getting dusty for years.
Vintage, new old stock ribbon candy.
You know what I realized about that the other day? The reason it was sitting there on the table and hadn't been eaten in years is because your grandparents didn't like it.
Yeah, like, well, this shit sucks.
We just assumed they did like it because they had it, but they didn't like it because it was just sitting around for years.
Do you think it would be really cool if there was like this super hipster trend to buy like new old stock, you know, like grandparent ribbon candy from like foreclosed homes and stuff like this? Like government seized homes where they're like, oh, here's this tin of old candy that we found, or like an old dish of candy that we found, the depression glass.
Yeah, they put it in some depression glass and set it out. Yeah, that sounds pretty hipster, yeah.
And they buy it and they fucking sample it. Probably make YouTube videos, like unboxing videos of it and stuff like that, and make more money than either of us.
Yeah, obviously.
Fuck the world. Well, other than being all down with the sickness disturbed style, how you been out there in them Hollywood Hills this week, Steve?
You know, honestly, because I've been so sick, it's been a lot of sleeping, but the weather is great. It's cooled down. Been walking my dog around.
Oh, yeah. Old Salem T. Boogans.
Salem T. Boogans, just walking around having stubby legs.
Oh, old stubby leg McGee there.
It's adorable for sure. What have you been up to, Ben?
Man, I've been doing all kinds of stuff lately. Actually, this week has been super busy, but I had a really cool day today where I went and got together and had another rehearsal with a ridiculously fun cover band project. I mentioned this on an episode a week or two ago, but myself and my main man, Andy Wood, who is just one of the most fabulous guitar players in the world today, are going to be playing in an 80s hair metal cover band called Skank Banger. And it's the best.
This is awesome.
It's the best. We got together today and ran through the set, practice and stuff, and it is just way too fun. It's like, I don't know, we're having a blast playing these, you know, ridiculous 80s hair metal tunes by like Def Leppard and Rat and Poison and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, that's awesome.
A total blast. I mean, I say that I'm playing in it, but what I really mean to say is that Davey Stranger is playing in it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the strange one, he and Ben are so interwoven, it's hard to pull you apart.
I have a hard time telling where one ends and the other begins.
Yeah, I think it's probably the mascara.
Yeah, that's what really ties it all together. So
Yeah.
I've been good. I've been teaching a fucking shit ton lately here, man. I've been teaching my damn dick off.
Oh, man. Just fucking laying a strong hand to those kids. Like, hey, E, not D, damn it. I don't know what you say.
These kids.
Yeah, you really have to. You stand and deliver them.
Yeah, pretty much. Have you been watching anything while you've been laying up on the couch being all sickly?
Boy, I'll tell you what, we, because you have been talking about it recently, my wife and I decided to start rewatching Seinfeld.
Oh, fuck yeah, strong move. That's what I was doing right before we started this episode.
Yeah, it's awesome still. I mean, it's still great.
Yep.
It really just captures the fuck it. like there's just like this real nihilistic feel to it. Like everything's funny. Just laugh and don't worry about it. I really enjoy it.
I think one of my favorite things about the show is how self-centered all of the characters are.
Yeah,
like
they're all terrible.
Yeah, it's like there's scenes where, you know, it'll be the four main characters in a room together. And, you know, Jerry will be talking about something that's going on in his life. And then, like, Kramer will respond to something completely irrelevant that's just his storyline. And then Elaine will talk about herself. And it's like, nobody really cares about each other. They're all just together talking about themselves. Because they're all kind of assholes.
Yeah, it Always Sunny works off of that same formula. And
Totally.
it works great. It's so fun because you don't find yourself caring too much about what happens to the characters. Like, if bad things happen to them, it's like, good. This is a bad person.
Yeah, exactly. I love it so much, man. We just got done watching the 100th episode, which is like a clip reel kind of episode, you know? But still had some good lulls in there. It's still good.
All right.
I've been watching a bunch of stuff lately, man. We watched, of course, you know, as we record this, it's the late September kind of scene there. So my wife and I have started watching through a bunch of Halloween horror classics. We watched through Sleepy Hollow there the other night.
Oh, awesome.
Still awesome. And I still feel like a lot of people just completely missed the point of how good that movie is. That's just a fun fucking movie.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
I've watched a couple of the Friday the 13th sequels, which we'll kind of talk about as we go along here.
Awesome.
Too. Most of them very fun watches. Some of them not as much.
Yeah.
And then tonight we actually too watched through Shaun of the Dead, which is just
awesome.
Oh god, it's so good, man. It's so fucking good.
You guys have been having a fun week.
Yeah, it's been good, man. It's like we've been working so hard lately that like whenever it's, you know, it's nighttime, we actually have just like maybe, you know, 2 hours to chill because that's pretty much all that we see each other through the week, you know? It's like, fuck it, let's watch something good and just chill and do nothing here for a minute. So, yeah, it's been good, man. It's been busy, but it's been good. Shaun of the Dead is the bomb. We got to cover that on the show sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Such a great movie.
Because it's funny and stuff, but like really at its core, it's one of the better zombie movies, you know, of the last 20 years.
Yes, absolutely.
Really, really, really good stuff. So the main thing that we're going to be talking about here on today's show is an absolute horror classic by the name of Friday the 13th, the original, which came out in, what, Steve, 1980? Is that right?
Yeah, May 9th, 1980.
Golly gee whiz. We're covering this because, for one, it's awesome. And for two, because it's October and it's Halloween month. And for C, because this is one of those rare Octobers where we actually have a Friday the 13th. So it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You know, and I always associate the Friday the 13th movies with October the 13th, but the opening of this is June 13th. It's insane that I always think of it for some reason in association with Halloween, even though it's a summer camp.
You know, I think that I have too. Now that you mention that, I don't think that I had really thought about that. But yeah, it's like summer.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think later movies, it does seem a bit colder. It doesn't seem like it's always summer. There's some where it's more of a summer camp, and others where I think it is maybe in the fall.
Yeah.
But like, I just always associate it in my mind with October.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that I had too. I hadn't really. Well, I mean, I think it's kind of like how we always think about, John Carpenter's Halloween as being so fucking seasonal, but it's a damn summertime movie too.
Yeah.
This is kind of the inverse of that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's shot in the summer and still it has that feel. Yeah, I don't know how because like the foliage and things in most of the shots, it's really green. It's obviously summer.
Yeah.
But like in the end of when she's on the canoe, you can see in the background there are some like trees where the leaves have changed, and I looked it up and they were actually filming through September. So like you do get like where some of the fall thoughts come in immediately, because there are scenes where there is like there are different colors on the trees and things, and probably a bit cooler. There are a lot of scenes where some of the actors are wearing long sleeves, and it's like, is this June? Like, why would you be wearing long sleeves?
The apparel of the movie is very confusing in a lot of ways, because like earlier in the flick, of course, there's a big bathing suit scene and stuff, but then like Mrs. Voorhees' sweater looks very snuggly.
It really does. And she's wearing another shirt underneath, and when we see her at one point, when she goes into a cabin, like you see her from a distance and you don't know it's her, she's wearing a big, heavy jacket. What the hell?
She's cold. Maybe she's got circulation problems.
That might be. I don't know, though. She seems spry.
I mean, maybe that's why, like, Jason ended up so fucked up, is like, maybe she's got really bad circulation and it didn't, take care of the baby well when he was in the womb and stuff.
And
I don't know.
That's why when he died drowning, she blamed herself so much that she started externalizing the blame and blamed everybody around her.
Yeah.
Yeah. We figured it out. End of podcast.
Yeah. See you guys next week. Suck it. It's a really cool flick, man, and it's a historic one. It's one that I'll say imitated a lot of horror flicks that were before it, and then was followed by a legion of imitators, of slashers all through the 80s and stuff like this.
Yeah.
So this is a landmark, historic, really important flick. And I just watched the I think it's 2009 or 2007. I can't remember. I think it's 2009.
2009, yeah.
Remake. Yeah, I just watched that last night for the first time because I was morbidly curious. I had to know. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's bad.
It's a pile of fucking shit, dude. It is.
Yeah.
It's like as bad as like that Hellraiser movie that doesn't have Doug Bradley in it.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, this
Yeah.
just is missing the point completely.
Entirely.
Yeah, 100%, man. It fucking sucked. I was really blown away by that fucking like 23-minute intro sequence before you actually even get the title credits.
Yeah, there's a 23-minute cold open where it seems like, oh, we're being introduced to the characters of the movie, but no, we're watching a short film about Jason killing some kids, and one gets away, and that's the story that we're gonna follow. That could have been just a few minutes.
It's total garbage.
Yeah, it's garbage, absolutely.
And there's just like, I don't know, man. It was just so soaked in like Michael Bay isms the whole time.
Well, he was a producer on it.
Exactly, and you can tell he definitely had some ideas to contribute to the entire thing. And it's funny, dude. It's like there's a lot of horror flicks that I love, like even like Friday the 13th Part 4 and 5, where I could tell you like those movies are nonstop sex and violence.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
It is. It's a good time.
Yeah, but for some reason, like that newer Friday the 13th remake we're talking about, like it's nonstop sex and violence in the bad way.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know what the distinction is.
I think the thing that I notice in the Friday the 13th movies is that the girls seem to be having fun too.
Yeah.
And what you don't see in that remake is that the girls are really having as much fun.
No,
It seems like they're being sexualized.
Oh, dude, absolutely so.
Not wanting to have sex.
And, like, every girl in it, this seems like such a weird thing to complain about, but, like, every girl in that is just, like, a fucking supermodel, like, super young, super hot, super skinny, like, huge tits. And you see everybody's tits in the movie.
Yeah, that's something that I was going to say about this movie is that I think all of the female actresses in this are pretty. They're absolutely gorgeous women, but they have normal body shapes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much so.
Like the Jennifer Garner girl, she's tall and skinny. The girl, I don't remember her name, that has sex with Kevin Bacon. She's she's more of a big bootied girl, etc.
Yeah, like hippie.
Yeah, they're all attractive and they all have different body types, and like that's the thing that's I think sort of people find empowering about women in horror movies is that in lower budget horror movies you don't go after supermodels, you don't go after the most gorgeous woman, you go after very attractive women, obviously, but they're normal looking. They're girls that seem relatable because when you're watching a supermodel get killed, it seems so fake.
Yeah.
But when you're watching a normal person get killed, it's much, you feel more. You're more likely to be scared.
I was having these ideas while I was watching this that remake last night, which, like I said, is just these fucking beautiful, ultra sexy people that are like sweaty and glistening and you know, have nipples the size of dimes. And they're just getting like murdered all in a row and stuff. And I was thinking, like,
are dime nipples attractive?
I mean, Michael Bay seems to say so. Could you imagine a Michael Bay snuff film? Like, because I really think that's what he really wants to make.
Yeah.
Like, Michael Bay wants to make like a fucking highly erotic snuff film.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It would just be glistening and lens flare and fucking explosions and like big fake tits and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. That sounds like the exact movie he's been trying to make his entire career.
Yeah.
And when he hears this, because I know he listens.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Michael. Hey.
Whatever. Call you back later.
He definitely will be like, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And he'll
it
do
clearly
it.
is.
Yeah, I definitely didn't like the remake. It seemed shitty to me that they got rid of Kane Hodder. The guy they got to replace him, Derek Mears, he does good, and he is Kick Puncher himself from Community. So
no shit, are you serious?
Yeah, he plays Kick Puncher in the Community.
That's goddamn awesome.
Yeah, Derek Mears he's actually really funny. If you check any interviews with him or whatever, he's obviously a great guy. And if you watch the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, all 6 hours of it, if you get to the remake part, you find out, like, he, you know, obviously he wasn't angling to take Kane Hodder's job. They just didn't want Kane Hodder back for some reason, which is insane. Like, why would you not want the perfect Jason back?
Yeah, that makes zero sense to me whatsoever. That guy seems cool as shit. He seems very enthusiastic and just like a legitimate horror movie nerd.
Yeah, and he goes at it hard.
Yeah, he does. He's good in it.
Yeah, you can't say that Jason is bad in it. It's just terribly done.
Yeah, and there's some pretty good kills and stuff in it, I guess, but zero of the charm of the original film. And I think a lot of the charm of the original Friday the 13th is those absolutely incredible special effects and kill scenes by our main man, Tom Savini, man, the fucking king of horror movie special effects, man. Like, if you don't know who Tom Savini is, basically, if you've watched any, you know, horror movie from the 1980s, you have seen his work. He has brought to life so many of our favorite flicks and given us so many wonderful scenes of decapitations and headshots and everything else. Tom, you know, how Tom learned his trade is he was a combat photographer in the Vietnam War. So that guy would go around the fucking, you know, jungles and take pictures of Charlie's aftermath and stuff like this, which is so monumentally fucked up. Like, I don't even know how anybody could live a normal
Come back
life.
from that?
Yeah, I don't know how you can see that kind of shit and go on, but talk about taking lemons and making them into lemonade, I guess. I mean, that guy's like, I saw some fucked up shit, but I could use this in the movie field, because if I'm making special effects for movies and it doesn't look like the shit that I saw that keeps me awake at night, then it's not good enough.
Yeah.
And there is a clear distinction between his work and everybody else in that time period, man. Savini's work, especially with gore and blood spatter and appliances for neck, throat cuts and stuff like that, are second to none for the time period, and hugely, hugely influential for all horror movies, and really, I mean, just any special effects period for that time period.
Yeah. I mean, as we've lamented a million times, you don't get as many practical effects anymore.
Nope.
So you don't know how many people are still paying attention to Savini's work, but I'm sure there are a ton of people out there that are still trying to emulate stuff that he does.
Absolutely so.
He's still teaching, so
yeah,
there are people out there learning his methods. We just need to get more movies with more practical effects.
I totally agree, man. And especially horror movies, dude, because horror movie fans are the ones that care about seeing those practical effects more than anybody. 10 times more than anybody. Horror movie fans want to see the real shit.
Yeah. But we don't want, obviously don't want a CGI Freddy, but we also don't want CGI blood.
Yep. Come
we
on,
want to
man.
see something that looks legit.
Yep. And it's like there was even complaints that I had with that, with the It remake, which I largely did enjoy, and we'll cover it on the show sometime here too.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of lazy stuff in there where it was like, God damn it, like Tom Savini or his student Greg Nicotero, who's worked on The Walking Dead and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
Either of those guys could have made some of that stuff look 10 times better than what we got in the movie. So, yeah, I really do agree with you there, man. I think that we need more horror flicks with legit great practical effects. I mean, that's to me the whole reason to watch The Void. Did you see The Void?
Yeah, The Void's great. Real fun.
It's a cool
real
flick.
Weird. Yeah, real weird.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's like if you're a fan of classic horror, practical special effects and stuff, that's a movie that you got to see, because you're going to be seeing stuff in that you just do not see these days. And like I said, it's all thanks to our man Tom Savini here. So I figure before we start into our review portion of the movie, me and Steve here, let's give these dead and lovely listeners a breakdown of maybe some of our top, let's say, 6 special effects movies that Tom Savini has worked on. Now, Tom Savini, he's worked on like a billion things since golly, man, when did he first start working? 60s?
Yeah, and I think he had started working before the Vietnam War, but then when he came back is when, he was able to actually get into the industry. He started working and pretty early got hooked up with George Romero, which, that's the way to end up in horror movies. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely so. He's worked on a whole bunch of different things throughout the years with great special effects. So I figured we'd give a little rundown of some of our favorite Tom Savini moments, and even some individual kill scenes from those movies that we really liked here. Now, I'm going to kick off
Tom Savini breakdown.
Tom Savini breakdown. I'm going to kick this thing off, Steve, with a movie that I won't say is a particularly fantastic movie. I think that it is kind of dry and kind of boring, but it does have some absolutely fantastic kill scenes in it. It's The Prowler. You've seen The Prowler before.
Yeah. Yeah, The Prowler does have great kill scenes, and I agree with you. It is kind of boring.
It does, man. But it's kind of a movie about a World War II veteran that got snubbed by his girl that was back home waiting on him to come back from the war. And he reenacts a bloody massacre at like a prom dance, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And again, not particularly great, but there's some kill scenes in this flick that are just fucking awesome. It has one of the best head explosion shots.
Oh yeah.
It's up there with like Scanners. It's at the very end of the movie. There's a head explosion that is just monumental. But that movie's got a whole bunch of other good ones too, man. That scene with the girl getting murdered with a pitchfork in the shower.
That's what I was gonna say. That pitchfork in the shower. Not only is the special effect awesome, that girl plays it so well.
I know, right?
It's
really,
a real
really
good scene.
I wonder how they got away with that too, because apparently, of course, there's all kinds of really weird NPAA guidelines for what you can and can't show, on screen.
Well, I think that was before the full rating system, right? Like they just had G and just had G and R at that point or something, or PG and R.
Yeah.
And then PG-13 came in with like Indiana Jones. I'm not sure which one it was, but
I think Temple of Doom, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which is why even like Poltergeist is a PG movie, which is nuts.
Yeah, that's insane.
But there's all kinds of guidelines and stuff about how you can show an object like a knife or a spear or whatever penetrating somebody as long as it's through clothes. But if it's through skin, it's, I guess, way more gruesome and way more unacceptable to see. So that pitchfork scene, it's a naked lady in a shower getting stabbed with a pitchfork, and it is brutal. It is just like a guy stabbing her with a pitchfork through the torso in the shower, and there's blood everywhere, and she's screaming and blood coming over her teeth and stuff. Really, really gruesome. There's some great shit in there, man. There's some really good stuff. Kind of boring movie, but yeah, The Prowler deserves a mention because those kill scenes are the bomb. From what I understand, he said that was some of his proudest work at that time.
Well, speaking of head explosion scenes, I'm going to say Dawn of the Dead.
Strong choice.
And there are a million things you could pick from Dawn of the Dead. I'm just going to go with the first and one of the best, and that is in the beginning when the cops are going through the condemned building trying to basically get rid of zombies, and they kick in a door and just blow a dude's head off, and the head explosion is just so realistic. It's so insane. But that movie's full of great effects. Like, absolutely full of them.
When did that come out?
That came out in 78, I believe.
Wow, man.
It was 10 years after the original.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
But yeah, that movie has a million other reasons why it's awesome. But Ben, what's your next one?
Well, my next one is kind of along those same veins because he came back and worked on good old Day of the Dead.
Yes.
Which is the one with the people that get stuck in that underground bunker with a whole bunch of zombies and stuff.
Yeah.
That's an awesome fucking movie. I actually just saw that for the first time maybe like a year or so ago. Are you a fan of that one?
Yes, I'm a huge fan of that one. I think people underrate it. I think the character of Bub I think I said this when we did Night of the Living Dead, that the character of Bub like takes zombies to a level that people haven't caught up with fully yet.
I tend to agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, it shows that there might still be something to save, and that makes it more like brutal. That even though there might be something to save, it would take so much work and would be impossible with these huge groups of zombies coming at you, so you still have to kill them, but now you know there's something in there.
Have you I can't remember, have you seen or read The Girl with All the Gifts?
I saw the adaptation. I loved it. I'm a huge fan of Gemma Arterton, and I really thought it was an interesting story. I've heard the book is much better even.
Dude, it's fucking phenomenal. You should really read that book. Yeah, the movie did a pretty good job, but it really was just, like a lot of movies, a super, super just Cliff Notes version of the book.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a whole generation of Bubs, basically, like a generation of child zombies that they're trying to recover and that's
what I'm saying is we're just now catching up with what Romero was thinking in 84, I think is when that came out. So
wow. It's fantastic.
I mean, he then had Land of the Dead, where the zombies start working together. So like, there's so much further. Like, people say they're tired of zombie stuff, and it's like, well, you're tired of zombie stuff because people are just repeating Night of the Living Dead. instead of following what Romero established beyond that.
Yeah, trying to progress with zombies and stuff rather than making them mindless killing machines. I'd say that my favorite kill from Day of the Dead is that they're towards the end of the movie when the
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. It's like Captain or General somebody or another who just gets ripped apart at the end of it.
And they're pulling off his head and his voice.
Yeah, it goes all crazy.
Goes high. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's so sick. And it's very, this is, again, honorable mention right here. It's very reminiscent of kind of that closing scene of Maniac. Where old Joe Spinells gets torn up by all of his, I guess you could say the ghosts of his murder victims. It's very reminiscent of that, which is also another Tom Savini flick with also a great head explosion in it too. So worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely worth mentioning. Now, my next one is Creep Show, and there's so much you could pull from that.
Oh shit, yeah, dude.
But the thing I like the most is the segment with Stephen King where he gets like covered in the alien grass.
Oh yeah, it's like he's all mossy and shit.
Yeah, because the effect is like so weird. It's so different, but it also just grosses me out. Yeah. Like I have a fear of shit growing on my skin.
Yeah, dude.
It seems so gross. And like that, it definitely stems from seeing Creepshow as a young man. So it stuck with me.
That's so cool. The bug scene and stuff in that too, with all the cockroaches and stuff. The last one.
Yeah. Gosh, that movie is great. We'll have to cover that.
I want to go watch that again, man. It's been a while since I've seen that.
So what's your next one, Ben?
Well, my final one that I have on my list is a movie that Tom Savini worked on. Actually, he worked on this movie instead of working on Friday the 13th Part 2 because he thought it seemed kind of implausible that, the character of Jason would actually be back and be a full-grown man and be running around killing everybody. So he instead opted to work on another camp slasher that is one of my favorite horror movies called The Burning. The Burning is the shit. It's such a ultra underrated movie, and it is, in a lot of ways, it is a generic camp slasher. It's kids that show up at a summer camp and they get fucking murdered like crazy by a guy that was wronged by former campers. And that's a very, very thin plot and stuff like this, but this movie, honestly, kind of unlike our main topic today, Friday the 13th, I feel like has a lot of characters that are legit and believable and played by like fucking young George Costanza.
Yeah.
Fisher Stevens, a bunch of people.
Yeah, there is a lot going on in The Burning for sure. And I really love the effects in it. Do you have a particular scene you like?
Dude, the raft scene. The raft scene.
Yeah.
It's
the best.
It's so sick. I had heard about the raft scene, before I even watched this movie and stuff. I had heard about it because it was like banned in a lot of international versions of the movie because it is just so blow your face off brutal. It basically involves like a raft full of campers and stuff trying to get back to camp. And they're floating down this little river, and they come across a canoe that they think has somebody in it from their campsite, and they creep up on it, and it turns out it's our main killer guy, Cropsy, and he murders this whole raft full of kids with a pair of like head shears.
Yeah, like gardening shears. Yeah.
And dude, it's like fingers are getting cut off, people are getting slashed across the face. It is just a bloodbath, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's so convincing and so well done.
Yeah,
Fuck, it's so
the
good.
Fingers getting cut off.
It's
like
the
that,
worst.
And it looks so real.
It does, man. And he stands up in the canoe, and you get that silhouette of him with the sun behind him, just with the shears above his head.
The shears raised up, yeah.
Yeah. It's so good, man. It's so good. I think that's really one of the most underrated slashers ever, in my opinion. It's got some genuinely like funny shit in there that you would go, yep, that's pretty much what we used to do when we were teenagers or whatever.
Yeah.
Good characters, good acting and stuff, and amazing special effects. Definitely try to check out The Burning. I actually I actually think that is better than Friday the 13th, in my opinion.
Huh. Okay.
I do.
All right.
I do.
I've only seen The Burning once, so I would have to watch it again. So we'll have to do it.
Yeah.
And have that discussion for sure.
That's a good call. What's the last one you got on your list here, Steve?
All right. So the last one I have on my list, and the thing about this one is there are great kills in it, but there's a specific reason I think it's one of his greatest. Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Oh.
In Friday the 13th, the final chapter, we have Tommy, played by Corey Feldman, and Corey Feldman is essentially playing Tom Savini.
Right, he's a kid who's obsessed with horror movies and special effects, and he makes masks.
And he's making like masks and stuff. Yeah, and it's really cool. And there are so many good kills. Tom Savini came back. He makes all these awesome kills. One I think is the best is the jokester guy is watching porn or something.
Oh yeah,
and he gets a corkscrew through the hand and then a hatchet to the face, and it's I don't know, like the corkscrew to the hand specifically. I think like they played it really well. It looked really good. I really enjoy like so much about that movie. I think it's one of the best, but like specifically that kill's really awesome. It's
badass, man. It really, really is. I think that's probably the best 13th movie overall, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it has Crispin Glover being weird.
Crispin Glover's kill in the movie is awesome, too.
Yes, it is. He's so weird in that movie. Like, he just goes strange.
That's one that's got the Doublemint twins in it, too, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Oh, man, looking real makey-outy.
They do. They got makey-outy faces, for sure.
Something that I really like about that flick, too, man, is there are... Dude, I can't even tell you how many times somebody like gets thrown through a plate glass window in slow motion through that movie. There's even one scene towards the end where a fucking dog jumps out of a plate glass window in slow motion. It's just like, wow, everybody's going through a window in this flick, man. I think my favorite kill in there, dude, is where I can't remember. It might be one of the Doublemint girls. I can't remember, but she's standing by a window inside of the cabin. And Jason, like, reaches in on, like, the second or third floor and grabs her.
Yeah.
And, dude, throws her out the window. And there's this great shot of Jason throwing her, of course, in slow motion.
Yeah.
And it looks like a panel from a comic book or something. It's so well composed and stuff. It's sick. And then she lands on top of that car, and the car, like, explodes.
Yeah, and then Jim Ross is like, "Oh my God,
she is broken in half.
She's broken in half.
God,
she's been choke slammed to hell.
She's dead. She's dead." That's some definite Hell in a Cell shit for sure.
Yeah, it's badass. I forgot. Now, you just mentioning that was in slow motion, and I, just rewatching the first one with the slow motion decapitation.
Yeah.
I forgot that's an element of the Friday the 13th movies that I really like. Like,
oh yeah,
those slow motion deaths, because it's like you're like showcasing either the special effect or the stunt. Like, you're really showcasing, like, we did this. Like, look, in slow mo, you can watch it happen.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It's not even something we need to just show you a quick flash of, because otherwise the effect is ruined. It's like, no.
Yeah.
The effect is so good, we can show it in slow motion, and you'll still believe it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's
cool.
That's a really, really, really good point. And two, I think another like big signature of the whole series is the fade to white, the white fade.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Which is awesome, especially in the intros of the movie. They tend to use that white fade a lot. And a lot of times in my videos on my YouTube channel and stuff, whenever I'm editing and I'm doing like a transition from like a shot to another shot,
uh-huh,
there's like a fade to white transition that you can use in iMovie.
Uh-huh.
And in my head, I'm always like, let's give it that Jason fade.
Yeah, throw a little Friday the 13th on it.
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly.
The way that it transitions in this to that, like, why I really enjoy that. Like, it doesn't just give you the we're going into the future feel, but it's also like, okay, calm down from those kills we just showed you. Like,
right, yeah.
This movie does that a lot, where it's like controlling your feelings.
Very
it's
much.
like, lulling you into feeling secure so that the next death scene is a shock.
Right. Yeah, definitely so.
I mean, horror movies all obviously try to do that, but this one does that very well.
Absolutely so, man. Absolutely. So, Steve, when was the first time that you watched Friday the 13th?
I could not tell you.
Wow.
These movies I have seen growing up over and over and over. I know this movie specifically was one that I saw a lot growing up.
Yeah.
And gave me a little boy boner for sure. So
for more on little boy boners, be sure to listen to our Jurassic Park episode.
That's good call. Good call. I definitely had crushes on the girls in this movie.
Oh, they're super
I thought
cute.
they were all so pretty.
I tend to agree.
I remember watching this a lot because I always forgot that Jason wasn't in it. Like we would watch it and it was always just like, oh right, his mom's the killer at the end of this one. Like, that's so weird.
Yeah, you're kind of waiting. You're like, and when does he come in again?
Yeah, and then like watching it again, this one's so good for not having Jason at all. Like, it's like if Jason were in this, and I do have a theory that he might be.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. And after you sent me a text earlier where you mentioned something about that, and I got to thinking about it, and there's a few things that I have to say about that too that do make me kind of wonder about that now that you mentioned it.
Awesome. I do have a theory that it might be, but like the fact that Jason isn't in this and there's still so much of that same tension, and the way that Betsy Palmer, who plays Mrs. Voorhees, plays Mrs. Voorhees, you can see some of the way she uses her body, like particularly in that cabin scene where what's her name? Is it Alice?
Yeah,
the main girl. Yeah, Alice is like, she like beat her down and got away. The way she stands up is like, it's like she doesn't feel pain. She like just stands straight up like a Jason type of stand. And then she comes out of the cabin and just slams the door. And you see Jason do that in instances where someone gets away. He gets frustrated.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so like, even though Jason's not in this, you get the same camera angle type of, Jason in the woods things. And you get the same type of fear from Betsy Palmer. So like, I understand why I forgot it so much as a child. But now as an adult, I'm like, you know what? You don't need Jason in this. Betsy Palmer's fucking awesome.
So you've seen this movie just countless times. You've seen it your whole life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been watching this movie my whole life. How about you, Ben?
I think I watched it for the first time probably about like 7 or 8 years ago. I think it's probably been, I might be lying, it might be more like 8 or 9 years ago. Because I remember we watched it over at our first rental house that we had over in Jefferson City, Tennessee. Okay. And my wife and I had never seen it. Of course, we'd heard all about it and stuff, but we were like, let's check this out and see what it's about. I remember whenever we watched it, not being particularly blown away. I don't think that either of us were really like that nuts about it. By that time, I think we'd already seen a ton of other great horror flicks that were influenced by it, which I always call that, Black Sabbath syndrome, where it's like if somebody tells you Black Sabbath is the best metal band of all time, but you've grown up listening to, Whitechapel or something like that, some modern heavy metal band, you go back and listen to Sabbath and you're like, this isn't heavy at all. But it's like, okay, but you grew up listening to stuff that was influenced several generations by what began there. So actually, at the time, that was terrifying, brutal music, but you've heard so many imitations and derivatives of it that it's less impressive if you've seen it after you've seen its imitators, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which not to say that this movie is a complete original, because honestly, you could say that the makers of this movie kind of looked at the blueprint of John Carpenter's Halloween, which came out several years before this.
You can actually say that, definitely. I highly recommend, there's a oral history of this movie on Uprocks.
Oh.
And Sean S. Cunningham and Victor Miller both said that.
Oh, really?
Victor Miller said Sean Cunningham came to him and said, "I want to rip off Halloween." And Victor Miller went and watched Halloween and learned how to write a horror movie. And those are his words. He said, "I went and watched Halloween and learned how to write a horror movie." So,
well, I feel like if you took about 2/3 of Halloween and mixed it with 1/3 of the mother-son dynamic of Psycho, but then inverted it,
yep,
you basically get this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that Victor Miller, I think, came out with a really good original script here. Even though you can say that a lot of this comes from, just viewing Halloween.
Sure.
What we do get out of this that is similar to Halloween is we get the final girl. But the final girl in Friday the 13th is not as straight-laced as Jamie Lee Curtis is in Halloween.
Sure.
Then we also get the difference that the killer is female.
Yeah, which is cool for the horror genre. Also, like an old woman, like an older lady, too.
Yes,
it's not like fucking, I don't know, some kind of like young, svelte, hot killer girl. It's like, oh, it's an adult.
Yeah, there's no like sexiness to it or anything. It's an adult woman killing because her son died 22 years ago.
Yeah, metal.
So that's real, like, different. It's interesting. So I think Victor Miller brought a lot to this, and I also think Sean Cunningham's direction is obviously great in this because the shots in this movie are awesome.
There are some really beautiful shots, man. I found myself particularly just mesmerized, man. Like, actually, some of the very last shots of the movie, whenever Alice is sitting in the canoe on the lake, I could watch like a slow zoom of that shot for an hour. Like that shot of her on that super serene, still lake in that canoe with all the trees and stuff around her. There's something about the reflections on the water and stuff like that that are beautiful. It almost reminds me of like the opening of The Shining or something, in terms of the landscape looking super vast and really bleak in a lot of ways. I think it's really interesting to look at.
There are also a lot of like long single shot takes.
There are, yep.
Yeah, where specifically I think of when Alice comes running back into the cabin when she's running away from Mrs. Voorhees, and she like creates this like rope lock for the door, and like she's like basically moving everything from the living room toward the door. And I timed it. It's over a minute and a half. One shot, she moves back and forth in the room. The camera just follows her the whole way.
Wow.
And it's great. It's a great shot the whole time. It never gets lost in the tracking. It's always a good shot.
I like, too, that she's building this huge barricade on the inside of this door to a door that swings out, not in.
Well, yeah, she had to tie the door to the rafters so that you couldn't open it. But then what are you doing with, I guess maybe if they do get it open, they have to climb over that shit. Like,
you're at least gonna irritate the killer mildly.
Yeah, for real.
You gotta open that door and be like, God damn it, all the shit's in the way.
And I'm an old lady.
She should just put like some Legos in the floor or something like that instead.
Oh yeah. You know what? She should have just gone Home Alone on it.
Kevin McAllister.
Got some paint cans, blowtorch,
Christmas ornaments.
The blowtorches we all have in our basement.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has one of those laying around. There are some really cool shots in this, though. And like you said, there are some really long takes. And another one in this movie that particularly fascinates me for absolutely zero reason, man. It is 1 hour and 8 minutes into the movie exactly. Yeah. It's almost near the end of the movie. It's when everybody's starting to get slaughtered and stuff. There's a scene that is about a minute and a half or 2 minutes where Alice, she's in the cabin by herself and she wakes up and the power's off and she realizes dude has gone off to fix the generator. And so she just gets up from the couch in the living room and she walks into the kitchen and makes 2 cups of coffee. And it is shot in real time. And it is her getting the mugs and getting the spoon and putting the coffee in the cups. I have no idea why, man. That scene fascinates the fuck out of me. It is completely pointless. I have no idea why.
I think I know why.
Huh.
And I'm going to tell you again why I think this movie's so damn good.
Yeah.
Bill goes to check the generator.
Right.
Alice she's fallen asleep on the couch. Now, don't get the idea that Alice is your typical final girl that's too innocent for the world. She's fallen asleep on the couch because she's exhausted, and they've come to believe that maybe nothing bad is happening. They're
Right.
not positive yet. So she has fallen asleep. Bill goes to check the generator. This is an hour and 4 minutes into the movie. Bill doesn't say a word while he's checking the generator.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing but sounds, just like when she's making the coffee.
Yeah, no dialogue, no music, nothing. It's just it's a damn ASMR video in the middle of a fucking horror movie.
Yeah. The thing that breaks up Bill checking the generator, no sound, then Alice making coffee, like, again, no dialogue, not no sound, no dialogue,
Sure.
is Alice suddenly wakes up and screams Bill, and then looks around, seems to remember, and then says generator. And
Yeah.
then she goes in and for 2 whole minutes is making coffee with no dialogue. And then it cuts to her in the woods yelling Bill again. It's just this wonderfully framed, using dialogue and sound and good direction, wonderfully framed bit of time that lulls you in. Again, it lulls you in, makes you feel secure, because we've just seen a bunch of deaths up to this point.
Right.
It makes you feel secure again, so that when Miss Voorhees does show up, when Betsy Palmer shows up, you're still a little lured in. You're still not sure. You're thinking like, oh, well, she can't be the person who's been killing. It's a nice old lady.
I think you're saying it kind of like lulls you into the same sense of security that Alice's character was probably feeling at that point, where she's like, everything's fine. Everything's
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, we go through it with Alice. We go through her anxiety. We see all the things she sees, and she's not fooled by anything. Like when Bill's like, I'm gonna go check on that, she's like, no, I'll go with you.
Right.
Whenever they see that they don't know what's happening, she's like, we should call someone. Like she's constantly being the one, like, we need to do something. So she gets lulled in. The storm stops. That's the thing that happens like right before she falls asleep.
True. Yeah.
So it's almost like all of the tension just gets sort of suppressed for about 4 minutes, and that 4 minutes gets stretched out by the fact that there's no dialogue, and it's just these almost soothing, comforting sounds.
It seems super realistic to me, and I like too that so much of that, like you said, of course, is completely no dialogue. It's only physical acting and stuff. It reminds me a lot of The House of the Devil, because there's in The House of the Devil, like we mentioned on our episode, there's like 30 or 40 minutes of that movie that doesn't have any dialogue in it. It's just physical acting.
Yeah, I really enjoy what they did there.
Me too.
I think that if you pay attention throughout, like go through it again, you'll notice that there are a number of scenes that are driven by action and not by words, where there's stuff happening and no one's saying anything. We're not being told what's happening. We're just seeing it happen. And that's just real good, I think, for a horror movie.
Yeah.
Because talk isn't scary. I mean, it can be. It can be, but like that's usually related to like supernatural horror.
Sure, yeah.
That's when talk becomes more scary. That's when you need a backstory for the house for you to feel like, okay, now there's some tension about walking into the basement alone.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But it's that show us, don't tell us thing.
Yeah, in this, we're seeing people die, so we know there's tension. The characters don't know there's tension, so they're just acting normal, and that's making it more tense.
So our character of Alice there, I feel like, is a pretty well fleshed out character in terms of her kind of personality traits and stuff like that. But honestly, I kind of feel like almost all of the other characters of this movie are really super super flat. Other than maybe like Ned, the kind of funny guy, you know.
Steve, I think, has some story behind him.
Yeah.
I'm mostly interested in hearing his story about being in Dexy's Midnight Runners video, Come On Eileen.
He was totally there.
Yeah, because he has that scene where he's in those cut-off jean shorts.
Oh, yeah,
and
dude.
the red kerchief around his neck.
Tooraloo.
Yeah, so I definitely want to hear his stories about that video shoot and how, of course, it got him so much money that he could buy and refurbish. I guess he didn't have to buy; his family owned it. But they said that he spent $25,000 like fixing up the camp. So like he obviously had a lot of money from that video. I don't know.
I think it definitely did fund his refurbishing of Camp Crystal Lake. Now, were he and Alice banging?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Because I think so too, but it's like then I was watching again the aforementioned Crystal Lake Memories documentary, which is cool, definitely worth a watch. It's on, it's on Shudder right now.
Well, and also like it's 6 hours, and that seems like a lot, but it's broken down by movie, so you can just watch it like per movie, and then it's actually only, I think, probably about 45 minutes a movie.
Yeah, exactly. But in that documentary, they were talking about how, you know, Alice is kind of like fending off the advances of Steve. And I'm like, I don't really think she is. I think she kind of went with it because there's that scene early on where she's like fixing that gutter and Steve is down there too. And I like too that for some reason, I guess while she's like fixing gutters at the camp, she's got to bring her sketch pad along with her.
Well, yeah, what if she sees something she wants to sketch? Just drop that fucking gutter and sketch it.
But yeah, she's got her sketchbook, and Steve is like, oh, you drew a picture of me. And she's like, or he's like, this isn't what I look like. She's like, that's what you looked like last night. After we had the sex.
So here's the thing. Have you seen Wet Hot American Summer?
I've seen the series, but not the movie.
Oh, well, you should see the movie. The series is awesome.
Yeah.
You should see the movie. David Hyde Pierce's character in the movie is basically this guy.
Oh shit, I love David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah, he's awesome. So, and Janine Garofalo's kind of Alice, I would say. I mean, obviously Wet Hot is not a slasher movie, but it is definitely inspired by slasher films. David Wayne has said so, and Ken Marino has said that his character was definitely inspired by that jock guy in Sleepaway Camp.
Okay,
you know, the guy
sick,
who's always wearing the short shorts and no sleeves.
Shorty shorts.
I guess that's everybody in that movie, though.
It kind of is, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, like, I think there is one other interesting character, and maybe two. Actually, let me get into my Jason is in this movie theory.
Okay,
and then I'll talk about the other interesting character. Okay, so the scene where Kevin Bacon dies. I don't know his character's name, because every time I see him, I go, that's Kevin Bacon.
Oh, yeah, he's Kevin Bacon. Sure, he's Footloose.
Yeah, he's Footloose, fancy free.
Yep. He's Hollow Man.
He's the Hollow Man. He rapes a woman while invisible.
Oh, ooh.
He's got a big dick in Stranger Things. Strange Things.
Wild Things.
Wild Things. He probably also has a big dick in Stranger Things. Watch season 2. You'll see it.
Yeah. I'd say just wherever he goes, big dick.
Big dick follows.
Bacon's got sausage.
So he's he's railing his girlfriend in the cabin.
Yeah.
And this again is another one of those lull you in scenes, because it's like they're playing script Monopoly in one cabin, and it's like, oh, this is about to turn into a wicked three-way.
Those rules of the strip Monopoly, very fuzzy, by the way.
Yeah, not really sure how that all works.
No.
It then cuts to Kevin Bacon, his girlfriend, getting freaky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like intense, like it's a long sort of intense scene with like, you're just like, oh, this is just a sex scene. And then the camera pans up to the bunk above them, and there's dead Ned with the killer laying beside him.
You know, this just goes back to what we've been saying all along, Steve. Bottom bunk, that's where you want to be.
That's where you want to be, because top bunk, you get killed. Yeah, everybody knows that.
And if you're in the bottom bunk, you get to have sex with Kevin Bacon.
Obviously. Oh, man. And that's, these days, you want to do that.
So, are you saying the killer was up there with the corpse?
The killer was up there with the corpse. You see the killer next to the corpse.
I didn't notice that.
And then, they're done having sex. We don't see any, like, cutaways or anything. We don't see any time where the killer could have got down under Kevin Bacon's bed.
Yeah, you would have had to leap down there or something.
Kevin Bacon starts smoking weed. And then we see what we know from the Camp Crystal Lake memories is Tom Savini's hand reaching up and grabbing Kevin Bacon and then shoving an arrow through his throat.
Which is a great kill.
So it's a man's hand that we see do it. We
definitely
can rest pretty sure that one of those killers... I mean, there are two killers, apparently, in this situation. And the writer of this movie said that he had to include the scene because he thought of it and he thought of how great it would be. And he knew that it would be impossible for Mrs. Voorhees to do that.
Okay.
To be under a bed and shove an arrow through the bed and through a throat.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely true. That's a lot of, like, strength that it would take. And she doesn't have, like, superhuman strength. We see her seemingly immune to pain, but we also see Alice fighting her off. And you don't fight off Jason.
That brings me to another thing that I noticed in this flick, too, is there's a scene where Alice, later on in the movie, is inside of the cabin, and... Again, I can't remember which female character it is. I think it's the brunette girl with the curly hair. Brenda, yeah. She gets fucking thrown through the window. A full-grown adult gets thrown through the window. And it's like later on, which by later on I mean like 5 minutes later, whenever we see Alice fighting Miss Voorhees, she is clearly just a of average strength woman. Like, she is not... super fucking strong. She cannot pick up a full-grown adult and throw her through a fucking window. There's no way.
She's 61 as well.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Like Betsy Palmer was 61, but Betsy Palmer in interviews has talked about the backstory she established for Mrs. Voorhees, and they've kind of gone with it in the comic books. She had Jason in her 20s. She's now like 30-something in 58. She's 61 in 80, she couldn't lift up a body and throw it through a window.
No.
So, yeah, I think Jason is in this movie.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, and that's how you can then rationalize the further movies. That's why Tom Savini didn't want to do the second one, you said, because he couldn't think of a way to rationalize how Jason would still be alive. And that does make sense. But it also makes sense to think that, okay, maybe Mrs. Voorhees found him almost drowning and overreacted to the point where she, just snapped.
Right, yeah, like maybe she'd be like a super helicopter parent or something like this.
Yeah, so I think Jason is in this movie, and there are kills where it's definitely Mrs. Voorhees. Like, even though you don't see her, the kill, say, for instance, when... the first girl that we see who was supposed to be the cook gets picked up in the Jeep. That's obviously not going to be Jason because we know his face is deformed. Yeah,
she'd get in that Jeep and be like, whoa, your face is fucked up, sir.
Yeah, or, at least she would react. But she seems comfortable. So it's obviously Betsy Palmer. And then later when Steve, the owner of the camp, dies, he says, oh, it's you. And it's like... oh, okay, he knows her because, as we know, she used to work at the camp.
Right.
But there are other deaths where we don't see her, and we also don't have any reaction to the killer.
Right.
So, and also the kill of the girl in the Jeep could have just as well been Jason, because, the girl jumps out of the Jeep and starts trying to run away.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think Jason is in this movie. I mean, obviously, I'm saying that with knowledge of all the future movies. Like, if you're just watching this movie as a single entry, or as a single movie with no thought of sequels, Jason's dead. It doesn't make any sense that you would make a sequel. But with the knowledge of all the sequels, it's like, yeah, he must be in this movie.
I'm going to go with an alternate theory here, Steve, that that the reason why we are misunderstanding Ms. Voorhees' strength and stuff that she has, and her obvious brutish, hairy, manly hands that she displays many times throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It's because we're assuming a gender.
Oh, shit.
It's playing on our assumptions, Steve. It's playing on us.
Well, speaking of assumptions, actually, let's talk about Brenda.
Okay, Brenda. Which one is she?
Brenda is the one I say looks like Jennifer Garner.
Okay, yeah, she does.
So Brenda is a vegetarian.
Oh, she's the animal lover, yeah.
Yeah, here's something I've started to learn about female vegetarian characters in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
There is something different about them.
All right.
Not just that they're vegetarians, but that they have feminist ideas and sometimes are gay.
Okay.
Not rarely. I would say pretty regularly are gay.
Okay.
Here's what happens with Brenda. Brenda suggests playing strip Monopoly with Alice and Bill. Mm-hmm. And I think, okay, Brenda's down to pound. Like, she's like, all right, let's you and me take on Bill. This'll be fun. Mm-hmm. AIDS hasn't been invented yet. It'll be great. But then they're playing strip poker or strip Monopoly, and suddenly the door flies open, and Brenda says, "Oh, I left the windows. My cabin's gonna be drenched. I left the windows open. My cabin's gonna be drenched."
Yeah.
And she said, right before this, Alice is about to have to take her top off.
Yeah.
And Brenda looks to Alice and says, "It's a shame that we have to stop now."
She does say that, yeah.
Then she doesn't go to her cabin.
No, she doesn't. You're right. You're right.
Is she afraid that her cabin's gonna be drenched from rain or something else? I'm just saying.
That's hilarious. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Now, it's very possible she's saying it's a shame or whatever because Bill had just taken off his shirt.
Uh-huh.
But she doesn't say that with Bill there. She says it when Bill's away from the table.
Right.
So, I'm just saying, it seems a little like Brenda may be interested in Alice.
You think she might be a vegetarian?
Yeah, she might be a vegetarian. And I realize that this is like the third out of our last 4 podcasts that we've said a character might be gay.
Yeah.
But, well, okay, listen, we weren't saying the character in Nightmare on Elm Street 2 might be gay.
Oh, it's affirmative.
He was gay.
Yeah, clearly.
And we weren't saying Justin Long might be gay. We were saying a person with a tiny rose tattoo around their belly button probably tends to prefer having sex with men.
In a movie that was made by a guy that molested boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Just quick update on that. I thought about this because I read
Update.
about...
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy. Update on Justin Long's tattoo. I thought about this because a lot of people who are sexually trafficked are tattooed by their pimps.
Oh, shit. For real?
Yeah, so not sure if that was a part of that.
Damn.
I think it might be. Anyway, so I don't know. I think Brenda might be, because, like, you know, when we had the girl in Jurassic Park, she's a vegetarian and she also is like a hacker, and like she like there's always like these, with vegetarian comes these more progressive ideas in the 80s and 90s, which is cool. Like, actually, you can even trace it back further, like 7-Year Itch. The guy's trying to live a vegetarian diet and also thinking about cheating on his wife. So like, vegetarian diet is like you're a degenerate, basically.
Because you ain't got the proteins you need to stay monogamous.
Yeah. Good, delicious meat makes you monogamous. It keeps you from having the gay sex. Keeps you from masturbating for sure.
And keeps you from living beyond 70. Keep that red meat in that diet, buddy. Yo, I say that. I love meat. I love red meat all the time.
I would love it all the time, except I don't want my heart to die. You know
Well,
what?
you know.
I guess if I'm gonna die, I want my heart to die with me. I would hate if my heart just kept going.
Your heart will go on. Maybe this is how that fucking Titanic song was written.
Celine Dion?
She was having the same
zombie?
Conversation. Yeah. Okay, so you think Brenda's so we got Brenda, the possible lesbian. We got Ned, the funny guy who's kind of racist, I guess, too.
And then Bill and Kevin Bacon are boring. For
yeah,
sure.
I know. Like, they're the same fucking character. Like, they should have at least made one of these guys, like, the asshole. Like, the unlikable one who was trying to, like, shack up with everybody or was, like, a degenerate in some way. Like, but both of those guys are just kind of, like, whatever, just typical male characters.
I would say Ned's the asshole. I mean, remember that scene where he shoots an arrow near a girl as a prank?
That's true. Not funny.
And then he pretends to drown as a joke.
He does that too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I was pretty glad when Ned died. I was like, good. Finally. Like, what if the movie ended there and it was like the villain is dead? Over.
Sweet. Now, is Bill the one that's like Bing Crosby's kid? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's the one that has no personality whatsoever.
He's the one that racks up the only legitimate kill in the movie where they kill a real black snake in this movie. The live one. Why'd they do that?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of grossed me out. Like, not the gore of it, but the fact that they killed an actual black snake when it's like, you could have just made a fake black snake or something.
Or how about this? Like, not had that scene in the movie whatsoever.
Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with anything.
But see, that's what I wonder, man, is like that scene where we see Bill, you know, just kind of quickly and just sort of very rationally kill this black snake with a huge machete.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it because I watched that scene the other night and I'm like, well, what the fuck was the point of that? Like, nothing there really ever comes back in the movie. But then I was thinking, are they trying to like fake me out and make me think that Bill has this like cold killer's edge and he's got a huge machete and he's obviously a big powerful dude? Maybe he's the killer. Are they trying to psych me out? Like, yeah, I couldn't tell what the psych out game of this movie was, man, because obviously there is sort of that Giallo movie trope throughout the whole thing of, you know, you just see a killer's hands or first perspective of the killer and the victim is like, oh, it's you, I can't believe it's you, or whatever, and they get murdered by this unseen killer. That's something that, again, Giallo flicks and all that stuff have been doing for years by this point chronologically. But I feel like this movie was trying to play the fake out game and keep you guessing. Like, was it Bill? Bill killed that snake and had a big machete. Is it the town crazy Ralph who was like hiding in the pantry and is obviously a lunatic? Like, but I don't feel like there was ever a guessing game.
I think even Steve might have some like suspicion cast on him because his family used to own the camp and he then leaves and then people start dying. Yeah. But then we see him at the cafe.
Yeah, he's been at that fucking cafe eating pie for like 7 hours.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, you're right. I really don't feel at any point like, oh, I got to figure out who this is. No. Like for me, it's just like, oh, the killer will be revealed at the end, but like it's obviously not any of the people we've met so far. Like to me, it never feels like that.
Yeah, exactly. There's never really a moment where you're really thinking, oh, it's definitely one of the kids at the camp, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Whereas I feel like in a lot of those other movies that do kind of the guessing game thing, even like let's say Sleepaway Camp, if you want to compare it to another camp slasher 80s flick, I feel like that movie does a really good job of like setting up incentives and personality traits in a lot of the characters to make you think, yeah, that guy could definitely be going around killing people, getting revenge and stuff like this. But in this movie, like, none of the characters themselves have any kind of motive or personality trait that would make you think that maybe they're a killer. So I never found myself guessing or wondering, like, gosh, who's at the bottom of this? I bet it's this person. I bet it's this person. Like, there's never really any really good fake-out game established. And I will say, like, the reveal, whenever you get it, that it's been, Miss Voorhees showing up because, like you saw in that flashback really early on in the movie with the original camp in the 50s, of the counselors getting killed and stuff like that. And then you hear talk of boy that drowned and yada yada. Whenever you find out that it is Miss Voorhees, I do think that it's a good reveal. And it's like, oh, cool. I do think that that's good, but I don't think there was really much of a guessing game built into it before then.
Yeah, they definitely tried for it a little, but didn't seem to commit to it, which I think is good. I don't like the guess who done it type of horror movies usually. I do love Sleepaway Camp because the reveal is obviously like way different and interesting and awesome. Yeah. But with Mrs. Voorhees, it seems just like, yeah, good. I'm glad it's not someone we've met so far. I'm glad there's a story behind it that can get revealed slowly. And I really then enjoy Mrs. Voorhees. As I said, I think Betsy Palmer's great.
She is. She's amazing.
I think about that scene where the first kill where this is maybe someone's sexual fetish, and I really want to meet that person. But the two camp counselors go up into an attic to have sex wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, like they're matching outfits.
Yeah, do you know, like, I understand that work uniforms or whatever, but like those clothes are so specific that it seems like someone's sexual fantasy to see two people wearing those clothes have sex.
I want to say that I heard a term for that recently, dude. I want to say there's somebody that I saw online talking about that, where it's like it's a shit. I know it's rooted in like narcissistic. It's like a narcophiliac or some shit like this.
That's awesome.
Where you just want to fuck somebody that looks like you or something.
But then things really take a turn for the best when you realize that the killer is Betsy Palmer, and you look up Betsy Palmer in the 50s. Because Betsy Palmer was a very pretty woman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you imagine you're about to bang your camp counselor girlfriend, finally willing to do it in the same clothes like you want. And then this 33-year-old blonde bombshell walks in.
It's like, this just got interesting.
And you see that on the guy's face because he's got like this smile at first.
He's like, oh,
he's
a
like,
new challenger has entered the game.
a wild Betsy Palmer appears. Yeah. It's fucking awesome. This movie, like, there's so much sexuality to this movie.
There is.
And it's interesting because Alice, who is our final girl, as we've learned from slasher movies, should not smoke pot and shouldn't play strip Monopoly, but she does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which, again, you can look at that as being like Laurie Strode for fucking Halloween. I mean, Laurie gets high.
Yeah, she smokes pot.
Yeah.
But she is afraid of boys.
Yeah.
Laurie Strode is afraid of boys, and I get the sense that Alice is not a virgin.
No. I mean, like I said, I'm pretty sure that she and Steve are hooking up.
Yeah. They're getting it on. So, like, Alice, in that sense, then, it's not that she fits some specific morality. It's just that she seems more alert and was lucky. Like, any of the others could have felt that alertness had they not been killed so early. But because all the others get killed in front of her, she experiences this alertness. She is more anxious. She is paying more attention to her surroundings, and she's able to defend herself.
Yeah.
So this movie, I don't think, because all the future Friday the 13th do work off of the idea that you die if you're immoral. This movie doesn't say you survive if you're moral. This movie says you survive if, despite the fact that you are immoral, you're paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, that's Laurie Strode. That's entirely Laurie Strode, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, this movie, I think, does a good job with some of the characters, but you're right. Like, there are characters in this that you could just toss out at any moment and nobody would care.
No. What do you think about our town resident crazy man, Ralph?
Well, I like his aggressiveness in stopping people to tell them about their doom.
He's all about it, dude. It's got a death curse.
A death curse. Camp Blood, they call it.
I think that he's an awesome character. Now, I want, and I was just thinking about this last time that we were watching this flick, man. A movie that I really want to see, because Ralph is clearly around the same age as like Betsy Palmer.
Yeah, they're about the same age, I would say, yeah.
I like to think somewhere that there is a prequel waiting to be made about perhaps the time that him and a young Mrs. Voorhees were maybe at camp at the same time, because Camp Crystal Lake has been open since the 1930s, I think.
Yeah.
I think it would be really fucking sick if we learned. You could even do it in the same story, dude, about maybe the time that they were at camp together when they were younger, maybe as campers, maybe as, I guess they'd be there as counselors, actually. But I would love to see a movie where we learn what drove Ralph crazy, and also maybe even how Ms. Voorhees got pregnant. Like, I think that there's a story somewhere in there, and it's like you could even, of course, you don't have to bring Jason into it, by any means, but it's like it could just be called, Crystal Lake, and be all about maybe the cursed history of this piece of land or something like this. Like, it's just kind of like the Overlook Hotel or something in The Shining. Like, it's just a haunted, cursed piece of land that is sort of a nexus for bad stuff to happen. And almost like Jason ended up being, that incarnate or something. I think that could be really cool. That sort of waiting to happen.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's possible that there's more of the story in the comics, because I know there's a Friday the 13th Pamela's Tale.
Oh,
that is about the mom and about the pregnancy, and I think Ralph is in it. I think I read that earlier.
Sick.
So there might be some backstory there. I know that the comic books have really built on the whole story and legacy of the Voorhees. So, like, I would like to see that on screen. You were saying earlier that there was like a comic booky quality to the slow motion element.
Sure.
I think that there's a comic booky quality to the sequels in general. Like, in one of the sequels, there's a telepathic girl versus Jason. Yeah. Like, Jason gets superhuman powers in Friday the 13th Part 6. Like,
totally, yeah.
There's so much about it that lends itself to comic books that I think, I'd love to see the comic book stories adapted into further Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, definitely so. That would definitely be really cool to see, man. Yeah, I think that there's something cool waiting to be heard about the early history of Crystal Lake. So I would like to read those comics and check those out and see if it ever goes into those. What do you think about the kill scenes in this flick? Kill scenes are always kind of the real treat of a 13th series movie. What do you think about the kills in this one?
Well, I really enjoy them. I was surprised to learn that the throat slitting of the girl who was coming to be the cook. Yeah. The makeup for that took 30 minutes.
For real? Did they just put fucking silly putty on her neck or something?
No.
Some lunch meat, some ham?
No. It was Tom Savini doing just amazing work in 30 minutes. Like, you watch it. I watched it on high definition Blu-ray quality download. And let me tell you, it looks good.
It does.
Like, no matter how high def you watch the movie, every single one of the kills still look good.
And that all comes down to like the neck appliance that she's wearing there, and it's the same with Kevin Bacon's arrow neck appliance. Like they color matched the actor's skin extremely well. That takes a super keen eye to be able to do that, because you're right. There's a lot of these old horror flicks where you watch it in a better definition copy, and you can see it's like, oh man, like that guy's arm is totally a different color. No wonder it got chopped off. It's obviously fake and stuff like that. But these do hold up really, really well. They color matched them beautifully.
Yeah. So the Kevin Bacon kill is awesome.
Yeah.
But one that I really like is the hatchet to the face.
Oh, that's the best. That's the best one in the movie, dude.
Yeah, because you get the great hatchet to the face, but also the girl like really goes for it. Her head like hits that wood.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
It's like, damn, she really played that well.
It looks really real, man. The way that axe, like, it's not like the axe like cleaved her head in twain. It's like it is sunk halfway into her head, and it's like she's got blood everywhere and stuff. Yeah, you're right. She totally goes for the fall and stuff like that. I think that's a shockingly gory kill. Very, very highly realistic. Again, that's one of those like combat photograph. Definitely kind of benefited his expertise in putting that together. It looks really good.
Yeah. And it shows a knowledge of death in the human body. I mean, I think people need to go, like, if you want good horror, you don't have to make it like everything overly gritty and realistic, but you do have to get the kills right.
Yeah.
Like, people want, that's our morbid curiosity with the kills, is we want it to look right. And so if there's too much blood or not enough blood, or if it looks like, well, that wouldn't have done that, like that wouldn't have caused that much damage, or that didn't cause enough damage. Like what Tom Savini has is this like eye for what something like the weight of an axe being swung by a 61-year-old woman hitting a head, like what that would look like,
how deep it would go. Like it wouldn't just make somebody's head explode. It would get stuck in the tightness of the bone and the brain tissue and so on, and just stay glued to that person's head as they fell back. Like, it does not look hokey or fake or unrealistic. What do you think about Miss Voorhees' kill, her decapitation?
I mean, like,
how about them toothpicks, dog?
Obviously, like, it's not Betsy Palmer, so like, they do the slow-mo, but they do the slow-mo from the moment, basically, that the machete is chopping through the fake head. And it looks really good. Like, it looks like a good cut with, like, a cross-section of skin and muscle and bone and stuff.
Oh, yeah, trachea and stuff sticking out of there.
And the way the head flies, like...
It kind of spins.
I don't know, like... Yeah, I don't know... I don't know if a head would do that necessarily, but maybe it would. Like, heads weigh, the kid from Jerry Maguire told us, 8 pounds. So I don't know if it would from the impact of that. Maybe not, but it looked cool for sure.
And you can see, and I didn't notice it, I think, until I watched that Crystal Lake Memories thing, but yeah, whenever it shows the close-up of after the head has been chopped off and the body is still kind of standing there in slow motion, and the hands, which are, again, man hands. It's not Savini, it's his assistant.
Oh, okay.
Because Savini swung the machete. It was his... I can't remember what he said his assistant's name was on this. He just kind of gave a one-word name. I can't remember who it was. But you see the man hands kind of working in the air and stuff. But yeah, you can see they affixed the neck stump to the fake head with just like a few toothpicks. And if you look, you can see those. And I gotta say, though, I respect the fuck out of the fact that they haven't gone back and digitally blurred those out. It'd be like a 5-minute fix to do digital, but they've left it in there because, like, fuck it, that's part of how that looked on screen. I really like too how, like, leading up to that, Alice and Betsy, they're kind of like fighting on the beach and stuff there, and it's a pretty good fight scene. She's kind of manhandling Alice a little bit, like bashing her head into the fucking sand and stuff. And yeah, she's got the machete. She's on top of her, and then the machete kind of flies a few feet away, and Alice ends up over there by it, and she and Betsy Palmer are probably separated by like 10 feet or so. And Alice goes full aggro and picks up that machete. She doesn't run away. Yeah, she doesn't do like the Laurie Strode, like, stay back, I warned you, or anything like that.
She goes for it.
She runs at her with that machete, and there's a scene where
Alice is a badass.
Oh, dude, it shows Betsy Palmer, and you can tell, like, her as
she's
surprised.
Voorhees.
Yeah, she's kind of like, oh, shit. Like, she's coming at me, coming in hot. I love that, man.
Yeah, it's so good. And, like, again, kudos to Betsy Palmer. She had a long career up to this point.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, her car broke down. She needed $10,000 to fix her car. And she got the call from her agent the next day offering her this part. She said, as long as they'll give me $10,000, I'll do it.
So I can buy a Volkswagen.
She read the script. She thought nobody will ever see this. But still, she went to set. She gave her all. Like, you see her doing some of these stunts. You see her wrestling on the beach.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
Her, Betsy Palmer, 61 years old. And she's going at it. And then, like, in interviews, she's never had anything bad to say about anybody doing the film. She's always talked positively about the film. She said that, like, Sean Cunningham was a great director, really helped pull good things out of her for Mr. Voorhees. Like, she didn't have to be there. She wanted to fix her car, but she didn't have to be there.
Well, I mean, she said in some interviews that she thought that, like, the movie was pretty shitty, and she didn't really understand why anybody liked it as much as they did. But
yeah.
But you're right. It's amazing to see that she is such a professional that she was like, you know what? I'm literally only doing this so I can afford a car. I think the movie sucks, but I'm going to show up and fucking work my ass off.
Yeah.
And give everything I got to this movie, because she does such a good job. Man, the scenes where she's like kind of going full, like, you know, Gollum Schmeagol and being like, killer mommy and stuff like that. It's so good. She has a genuine, like, craziness in her eyes and shit. It's very believable.
Yeah, and she, like, her image up to this point was completely goody-goody. Like everything she had ever done, she had been, like, a positive character. And, like, she was always seen as, like, you know, this sort of, like, sweetheart.
Yeah.
So to go at this and to really, like, just be the villain, that's really cool.
This makes me want to see a movie where, like, fucking Sandra Bullock is a killer in a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would love, because I hate that, you know, so many horror movies that come into theaters now are all big Hollywood. Like, you can still see great horror movies. They're just indie horror movies. You'll see them on Netflix, etc.
Totally.
But, like, they'll all have big names in them. And it's like, I don't want to see big names, but if I do see a big name, I want to see them doing something different.
Yeah,
like, I would love to see Sandra Bullock being, you know, the insane person or whatever. Like, I would love to see that. That would be much more interesting than seeing just, like, you know, these big name teenagers who are all way too attractive playing the roles.
Definitely so, man. And I'll mention too, I think the soundtrack to the movie is dope. Of course, we have the extremely famous soundtrack thing, which is iconic. I mean, to say the least, it's super iconic. But even the other musical bumps and stuff in the movie, I think, are really cool. And there's even some neat stuff like, again, that ending scene where she's sitting there in the canoe before Jason jumps out of the water in that dream sequence. The music that's playing there is super, like, dreamy and kind of serene and stuff. Really pulls you in very nicely. I think all the musical stuff in this movie is really good.
Yeah, Harry Manfredini, who did most the music for all of the Friday the 13th sequels too, like, he does such a good job. In the sound in this, like, the music and the sound play such a huge role. Definitely. Especially because, as we've been saying, there are large segments where, like, there's no dialogue.
Right.
So it's just background noise and, like, these, you know, like, sounds of nature and things. It's really really effective in bringing you into feeling like you're in the woods. The cool thing is, though, it doesn't make you scared of the woods. Like,
Yeah.
it makes you feel like you do when you're in nature. So, like, I even at certain points, like, when there's the dude, Bill, is painting, I can almost smell the paint. Like, you can almost smell the green and the water. Like, you can almost smell it. Like, the way this movie comes together with the sound and the visual and everything, it really captures exactly what they're going for. So it has some flaws, but it really was put together well.
I know what you mean, and I totally agree, because even though the movie was set, of course, in New Jersey, like, you know, me and Steve grew up in East Tennessee, so it's like...
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we grew up all around fucking, you know, woods and lakes and campsites and shit like this. Like, I didn't really do much camping or anything as a kid, but it's like we would go out to the lake and go out to the woods and stuff all the time. So to me, this is very familiar, you know, eastern side of the country kind of turf.
That's exactly what it reminded me of.
Yep.
And like, I never went to any sort of summer camp or anything.
No.
And I also wasn't a churchgoer as a kid. So like, having these events out in the woods with lots of people in one area, like, I don't remember that, but I do remember playing with my cousins in the woods and at the lake. And it's exactly like this. And so it seems serene. And that's why I think I really enjoyed it as a kid, because that's exactly what we did, was go playing in the woods. And then watching these movies, it makes that a little more dangerous. And it makes it, I mean, you know, as a kid, it's scarier, but it's also more fun, because it's like, okay, what could happen? So we didn't stop playing in the woods, but it made it more like, there's a little darkness out here. There's a little something. So that, like, when you build a fort, it's like you can pretend like this fort protects me from that.
Yeah, from the shit that I saw happen in that movie.
Yeah, it's so, like, as a kid, like, I remember having so much fun because of that now as an adult, I think, like, oh, obviously, you know, all that anxiety would just drive me crazy. But as a kid, it's just like, oh, no, this is so fun. This is so cool.
Well, because as an adult, the things that really scare you are like, I know I'm not going to get killed by Jason Voorhees. I'm going to get killed because my senators don't want me to have affordable health care. And I'm just going to get some normal-ass disease and fucking die.
I'm going to get killed because I live close enough to North Korea. Like,
yeah, or that. Yeah, exactly. Those are the real fucking threats that we live with this day and age.
Not Jason Voorhees.
So, Steve, overall, now that we've kind of gone through a lot of the things about this movie that we find interesting, what are your final thoughts on this flick and your final rating on a scale of, let's say, a 1 to a 10 sort of scale?
Okay, we're going to stop at 10. Good.
Yeah.
Deck a scale. Got
no
it.
More, no less.
So, okay. This movie in particular, Friday the 13th, it has all of the elements that I really love about Friday the 13th movies with Jason in them. But it doesn't have Jason.
Right.
So, I know that it's the first one and that you can't think of Jason as missing in this. But I feel like Jason's missing. I want Jason. Even though Mrs. Voorhees, Betsy Palmer, plays really well, and Mrs. Voorhees is very creepy, and I really love so much about this movie. I do love more movies with Jason in them. So I can't say that I think this is the best Friday the 13th.
Definitely.
But as a horror movie, I think it's good. I think it's really good. I think that I've said so much already. The direction, the writing, the music, the special effects, all that is great. There is some good acting in it, and there also, there's some characters who just don't have much to do, so, like, we don't see if those actors are good or not.
Right.
And that actually is, interestingly enough, I would say Steve and Bill are the two who have the least going on.
Absolutely.
And then Kevin Bacon's character doesn't have anything going either. So the male characters are kind of boring.
Right.
The female characters have more to them. So it would be nice to see the male characters written a little bit better, but also maybe just cut them down to 2 characters instead of 3 or whatever, just to have. I don't know like if we need much more than Ned the asshole and Steve the owner, and then maybe Kevin Bacon's character just to get killed early.
Well, again, that's why I think the burning is so effective too, is because there's a lot of characters in that movie, but I do feel like everybody has a unique identity. I think.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think you're right. That's I think a definite like problem with this movie is that there's a less identity for the male characters.
Sure.
Still, it's a great movie.
Yeah,
and definitely will. Anybody who likes camp slashers, and I'm a huge fan of camp slashers.
Mm-hmm, me too.
Anybody who likes camp slashers is going to enjoy this one. I think in the end, I've seen this movie so many times, and I can't pretend like I won't watch it a million more times and every time still enjoy it. So for me, this is an 8.5 out of 10.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty strong kind of rating there, and I can understand.
Let's go ahead and say 8. 8.5 is too strong.
8 out of 10. I can buy that, man, because I'm with you. Like, this is a movie that, to me, it has a lot of flaws, and I think it has a lot of things, filmmaking and writing wise, that I can tell are pretty immature as far as somebody not having a complete, really established vision, in a lot of ways. But I'm with you. I fucking love a camp slasher movie. Like, I'm wearing a Sleepaway Camp t-shirt right now as we record this. And so many of my other favorite horror flicks are camp slashers. So I can't help but love it. I know that I'll watch it a million more times, but I can't lie. It's not perfect, man. Like I said, there are, as you said, a lot of characters that are really useless and could be condensed down or just expanded upon, and made more individual. I think that there's some really weird pacing in a lot of parts of the movie where you could tell that they were just trying to hit that, it's technically a movie if it's 80 minutes long or whatever. So rather than just show this car drive off, let's show it drive off all the way down the road. Rather than show Ralph get on his bicycle, let's show him get on his bicycle and pedal all the way fucking down the road. It's like, there's a lot of scenes, like even like Bill inspecting the generator and stuff like this, where it's like, man, this is weirdly long. That coffee scene that we like so much, it's like, it is still...
It's too long.
It's weird. It's like, I don't think that scene is too long, but I think
it
about
probably doesn't need to be there.
Well, when you could have spent 2.5 more minutes of this movie, which is a pretty short flick anyway, but when you have a couple precious minutes you could spend establishing something about the characters and having useful scenes, unlike this fucking killing a black snake in a cabin scene, which doesn't establish anything about any of the characters. Like, it's not like it establishes that Alice is scared of snakes and then later Miss Voorhees fucking fucks with her with a snake. It's not even it's not an Indiana Jones kind of thing.
Right.
There's some useless stuff where it's like, okay, you really could have just been developing these characters better instead. So again, I can't lie, flat characters, there's some weird pacing in there. The fact that Miss Voorhees shows up just kind of out of nowhere at the end of the movie, that's kind of weird. I mean, that kind of breaks that whole thing about don't introduce a new character in the third act. That's kind of a huge no-no for story writing.
Yeah. What about the fact that she apparently drives the Jeep that Steve also drives?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same Jeep.
Same fucking Jeep, man. Same thing. Yeah, so there's some problems. There's some problems there, I would say, but I can't lie, man. I like it. Like I said, it's like I love a camp slasher kind of flick. I will watch this many more times. I like the fact that it turns out the killer is this sweet old lady. I think that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
So overall, I think I would probably have to rate this one. I'm actually gonna say like 6.5. It's a 6.5. It's enjoyable, but it is flawed, I think, in a lot of ways. but I'll watch it many more times. And the fun thing about it is it sets up the real fun, which to me is like, I think Friday the 13th 2 through 5 are just an absolute blast. So fun to watch, man. They're not scary by any means, but those are just really fucking fun movies. I look forward to covering those on our show too. So we'll definitely do those in the future. But yeah, for this one, 6.5.
2 things that I forgot. 1, Ralph, ultimate hipster.
Yeah?
Dude dresses like, with vests and jaunty caps.
It's true.
And rides a fixed wheel bike.
You're right.
But number 2, and this is a theory I have, and if you've stuck it out for this long, this is well worth it. At one point, Alice runs into like a garage thing, and there is a wall of guns. All of the camp counselors, as I understand it, seem to be comfortable white kids, and Steve, as we know, spent $25,000 refurbishing this camp, and on a $2.25 check left 75-cent tip. So this guy's balling.
It's true.
They said that they're bringing in disadvantaged kids to the camp. Is this camp a hunting lodge for rich people?
Oh shit! Like you're saying, like the most dangerous game, like they're people hunting?
Yeah, disadvantaged children is what I'm saying they're doing.
Oh my god, that would be so sick.
And then they're gonna take them to Mars and molest them. Alex Jones. I have my shirt off right now and I'm yelling at the camera.
I'm wondering if there's any pizza in this movie at any time. I'm trying to think about it.
Oh, shit. Did they get their pizza from DC like Victor Salva?
It might be that way.
Anyway.
Shit. Well, I look forward to watching the other ones and covering them on the show, because I think that once we get Jason, that's when the real fun begins. So we'll definitely cover those.
I checked it out. Jason's birthday is, of course, June 13th, 1958. This June 13th, 2018, the next one, that is a Friday the 13th.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, so Jason's 60th birthday is Friday the 13th.
Oh, dude, that's fucking cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really rad. Well, Steve, what are we going to cover on the show next week for our October Halloween madness?
Well, it's about damn time that we got to Child's Play.
We're going to talk about old Charlesy.
We've done Michael Myers, we've done Pinhead, we've done Freddy Krueger. We technically have done something about Jason Voorhees.
True.
We gotta get to Chucky.
Awesome. Now that's the movie that we talked about the serial killer that enters a real doll and gets fucked to death, right?
Yeah, and then he gets fucked to death. Yeah. Well, actually, he just gets fucked into disintegration for eternity.
That's so metal.
Like, no matter how much the plastic just like gets all like moldy
Janked
and
up.
shit, he's still in there just suffering.
I love it, man. Well, you guys be sure to tune into next week's episode. We'll be talking about the original Child's Play just in time for the is it Cult of Chucky movie that's coming out?
Yeah, Cult of Chucky.
I haven't even watched the trailer for it. Have you?
No, I doubt I'm very interested in seeing it.
I'll
tell you this already. The Child's Play 1 I do like, but most of the Child's Play movies, it's like, I don't know.
I watched this again for the first time in a long time, probably about, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to enjoy watching it again for the show with a more critical eye. So you guys be sure to tune in to that one there before the release of the new Child's Play flick. And in the meantime, you guys be sure to drop us an email dropping some suggestions about what movies we should be covering on the show next time. What's the email they can reach us at, Steve?
deadandlovelypod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram or Twitter @deadlovelypod. And we also have a group on Facebook.
You guys also be sure to go on iTunes and drop us a review and rate this podcast. Hopefully a high rating if you enjoy it. rating and reviewing the podcast really helps us show up on searches and stuff like that. So if you enjoy our show and the time and work we put into it, please be sure to go on iTunes, rate, and review. Just keep it G-rated or else they will not post it. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Ben Eller Guitars if you'd like to follow me on there. Where can they find you, Steve?
At Steven Spratling, Steven with a V, the only way to spell it.
Oh, man alive. Well, in the meantime, we will see you guys next week where we'll be talking about old Child's Play. And thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. You guys have been just absolutely goddamn divine. Meanwhile, me and Steve have been dead and lovely. Goodbye, y'all.
Kill.